Hey guys, Collin Chi, certified nutritional consultant, numerologist, bringing you guys another talk today. Today I'm going to be talking about whether astrology slash astronomy can predict future disasters, okay? The effect of the planets in causing natural disasters such as earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, etc. So I'm going to be going mainly through this book, Astrology, the Space Age Science by Joseph E. Goodavage, and giving you some insights on that. So there's some main things, there's some main planetary alignments that can possibly contribute to major disasters. So this is important because we would prefer to predict these things rather than just let them suddenly happen out of nowhere and cause the mass devastation and destruction of the planet and lives on the earth. So obviously, it's important to learn astrological prediction or astronomical prediction and other things involved in why earthquakes and volcanic eruptions occur. So, let me get into it. Okay, so here we go. Can astrology predict future disasters? Major earthquakes always closely follow solar eclipses and often coincide with major planetary conjunctions. Okay, solar eclipses and conjunctions. Okay, also oppositions. These are some important possible causes of earthquakes. Okay, how Isaac Newton predicted England's greatest natural disaster. It was scheduled to begin with the startling appearance of the aurora borealis during the first 3 months of 1750, 23 years after his death. The northern lights, he said, would culminate in a series of mighty storms with unusually destructive gales. He further warned that sharp earthquakes would follow these storms and cause widespread damage and death throughout London. His precision calculations indicated that the great planet Jupiter would be near enough to the Earth on the date of an eclipse, and that the moon would be closest to the Earth. These and other celestial conditions, he theorized, would be the cause of tremendous atmospheric and seismic activity beginning in February 1750. Nearly a quarter of a century later, the skies and Earth opened almost at the same time. It was the first case on record of an airquake and began with the northern lights flickering over the peaceful English countryside. Then came the death-dealing storms with winds up to 100 miles per hour. A roaring series of earthquakes toppled remaining steeples and chimneys, collapsed walls, and buried screaming Londoners alive in their homes and beds. But more than 2 centuries after Newton's pioneering experiment, we know of these disasters only after they occur. What happened to Newton's theories on the cause of earthquakes? Many earthquakes have been predicted regularly with respectable accuracy. Following Newton's accomplishments, Commander Morrison of the Royal Navy duplicated them. Dr. Alfred J. Pierce did it again in 1886, and an American followed suit in 1933. In part, the system used by these men is based on the early work of an ancient scientist named Anaximander, who erected the first gnomon for astronomical observations in Lacedaemon, Greece, or Lacedaemon. He then predicted in detail the earthquakes which ultimately destroyed that city. Okay, I'm about to give you, how these things are caused, but there's all these different stories of prediction. In 1953, Dr. Rudolf Tomaszek, a geophysicist from the University of Munich, published his celestial data with coincidental seismological occurrences. After checking the places of all the planets during 134 severe earthquakes, he discovered that Uranus was close to the overhead midheaven position at the times and places of the major disasters. Okay, so Uranus as a potential cause, being at the midheaven directly above the Earth. Okay, so number one possible cause is Uranus of earthquakes and natural disasters. And Uranus in astrology is associated with unexpected and often violent action, according to The Only Way to Learn Astrology, Volume 1 by March and McEvers. They state that exact phrase, basically. And it rules electricity, it rules sudden change, revolution. Okay, and it also even said verbatim in the book. Recent research also associates Uranus with natural disasters, particularly earthquakes. Okay, I don't know if they were referencing this book or this Joseph E. Goodavage book or what they were referencing, but according to The Only Way to Learn Astrology, Volume 1, they also associate Uranus with earthquakes. Since the discovery of Uranus in 1781, Tomaszek and other investigators have consistently reported a relationship between the position of this planet and upheavals of the Earth. The German scientists learned that in 5 cases out of 6, Uranus was directly or almost directly overhead when the Earth shook. 23 major quakes during the 1903 to 1906 period showed the best correlation. At the second largest quake of this century, for instance, Uranus was 30 minutes of arc shy of its meridian passage. In the Great Assam earthquake of 1950, Uranus was 25 minutes of arc from the overhead position. This is less than 1,000th of a circumference of a circle. At the devastating Yokohama-Tokyo quake of 1923, in which 100,000 people were killed, Uranus was a mere 16 minutes of arc past the meridian of Tokyo. In the San Francisco disaster of 1906, Uranus was then just 6 minutes short of its overhead position. Neptune was directly beneath the Earth, the nadir, it's called. When a planet is directly beneath the Earth, otherwise known as the Imam Coeli in astrology, it's called the nadir. When it's above the Earth or the midheaven or medium Coeli, Anyway, it's called something else, but I don't know where I was going with that. Uranus, Neptune was directly beneath the Earth, at San Francisco, and in exact opposition to Uranus across the solar system when the quake struck. So, basically these planets, you can see it here. This is illustration A, Uranus in opposition to Neptune and Pluto during earthquake years 1904 to 1906. So you're creating, there's a conjunction between Pluto and Neptune, and then Uranus is in opposition to them, so you're creating this direct line of activity between the planets, if you can see that, So Pluto out here at the top, and then Neptune underneath it there, and then you've got Uranus down here, So obviously, there's some electromagnetic forces at play here, or plasma discharge forces at play, possibly creating these earthquakes, You're creating direct lines of force, or electromagnetism, or electric charge, electrical current flow. Something is happening to create these earthquakes. A statistical check of the critical earthquake years produced odds of 10,000 to 1 against the quakes occurring when Uranus was directly over the stricken areas. It was a 10,000 to 1 chance that would occur. If it were a matter of pure chance, then each time a quake occurred, it had only 1 chance in 10,000 of happening. It has since been learned that more earthquakes occur when 2 or more planets are in line to the Earth, as during an eclipse. This also happens during the critical period when Neptune opposes Uranus. So number 1, Uranus. Number 2, conjunctions and eclipses and oppositions. These are possible causes. Delayed reaction effects. This is interesting. When pressure is applied to one end of a steel bar, it will cause a compression wave of molecules to race to the other end of the bar. But the bar will not move until the molecular wave returns to meet the applying pressure. This is an oversimplification of the fourth law of motion discovered by Dr. William O. Davis, which states that it is possible to sidestep the reaction effect if the pressure of the pressure by withdrawing it before the molecules return to meet the applying force. You apply a force to one end of a bar that sends a vibration in one direction, and then it's going to send it right back because equal and opposite reaction, right? Newton's third law. So that wave, before it comes back to hit the pressure that you applied, the original area where you applied that pressure, if you could remove that end of it, then it wouldn't be, it wouldn't receive that force. Planetary conjunctions and eclipses of the sun and moon seem to set up powerful magnetic fields in space, which are triggered by future transits of the planets to that point. Okay, so there's basically, conjunction, and eclipses, the moon or some other planet in front of the sun, or there's other ways you can have eclipses, but so basically that is creating a conjunction between the sun and some type of planet, between, so the sun, the moon, and then the earth, so that's, sun and moon are in conjunction with each other, like in a direct line hitting the earth. Or if there's other planets also, if, let's say, Mercury and the moon, or the moon and then Mercury and then the sun, you're creating a conjunction there. So, but these conjunctions are setting up an electric field, right? Electromagnetic field, okay? Because, these planets are made out of, the sun is a plasma, okay? So plasma is electrically conductive, okay? And plasma can be created by applying heat to a gas, or applying electromagnetism, a strong electromagnetic field to a gas. Okay, so let's say, a gaseous planet like Venus or Jupiter or something. If you set up a strong magnetic field between other planets, you could create other like, the cold planets, like like Mercury, or not Mercury, but the cold, or let's say you have like these planets are made out of minerals, right? Mercury and the moon, for instance, they're all made out of minerals or metals or gases. Okay, so there are electrical phenomena occurring between these planets because of this. So you basically have these conjunctions. So let's say you have an electric field hitting the gaseous planets, then you can create a plasma that will stay in outer space, basically, and sit there for a while, even once those planets have moved past there. Okay, so you're setting up. That's my kind of theory. How this powerful magnetic field in space is set up by these conjunctions. Okay, you're setting up basically a plasma in space, potentially, or some type of electromagnetic field, and then that plasma is electrically conductive. So then when some other planet comes into the area where this previous conjunction was, and somehow, because of its electric charge or its makeup of metals, minerals, whatever, hits that stream, that filament of plasma, which then causes an electrical current to flow and hit the earth. Okay, giant thunderbolts in a way. Okay, there's these different phenomena that happen before earthquakes strike that have been reported, whether it's bell ring, like a ringing of a bell almost, or different like fog. I'll list some of them. So let's move on. How an earthquake is predicted. While studying the elements of a planetary weather map for the solar eclipse of August 31st, 1932, astrometeorologist George J. McCormick noted that Neptune would be in conjunction with the sun and moon at eclipse time. Neptune, a planet of large mass, would also be close to conjunction with Jupiter, the planet of largest mass. The weatherman who was familiar with some of the elements used by previous earthquake forecasters decided to experiment with the theory that the Sun-Moon-Neptune-Jupiter conjunction had seismic implications. This rare bunching together of celestial bodies at eclipse time, he theorized, would set up a magnetic field of unusual intensity in that area of space to be triggered at a later date by the orbital passage of yet another planet, the timing element. The eclipse path, a long, narrow band, happened to fall directly over the longitude of Los Angeles at the moment of greatest totality. This meridian or mid-heaven position is considered of utmost importance in astronomic weather forecasting. Los Angeles, therefore, was the calculated area for future seismic activity. The eclipse would occur at 158 degrees of celestial longitude. This is measured by a circle of 360 degrees around the belt of the ecliptic beginning at 0 degrees of the sign Aries. Since each sign is 30 degrees of the circle, the eclipse would take place at 8 degrees of the sign Leo. Mars, he observed, would be orbiting close to the conjunction of this area between March 8th and 12th, 1933, and Mars has always been considered the catalyst or energizer in the celestial scheme. Choosing March 10th as the date and Mars as the planet, McCormick then published the eclipse maps, including the setup at Mars transit of the place of the previous eclipse in Astro Weather Guide. On March 10, 1933 at 5:54 p.m., Mars swung to within 1 degree of the previous eclipse area, 158 degrees from 0 degrees Aries. The faster-moving moon approached within 2 degrees from conjunction with Mars. The more ponderous Neptune was still at 158 degrees, because Neptune takes a while to orbit around the sun, when the disastrous Long Beach earthquake struck, killing 115 people, injuring 1,000 others, and resulting in $50 million damage, $50 million in damage. It registered 9 on the modified Mercalli intensity scale of 12. Okay, so this is what it looked like when it occurred. Okay. So, planetary pattern at Long Beach, California on August 3rd, 1932. Okay, so that was that's not when it occurred. That was the original conjunction. Okay. So you had all these planets in line. You had Neptune, Jupiter, Sun, and Moon. Okay. Neptune, Jupiter, Sun, and Moon. Okay, you had right here this spoke over here, if you will. So Neptune on the outer there, and then Jupiter right here, and then the moon, or sorry, the sun. That's the sun there. So Neptune, Jupiter, Sun, the moon's right here, and then you have Earth. Okay, so it created this conjunction, and then as Mars came around and swung into that orbit, apparently, basically it created an earthquake. So these conjunctions, these oppositions, these direct lines when the planets are in direct line with each other towards the Earth, setting up electromagnetic fields, probably, I don't know everything about electricity. I don't know a lot about physics. I don't know a lot about plasma physics. I just know this much, okay? I don't know everything about magnetism. So hopefully, somebody who knows more than me about those things can explain this better, but at least I'm giving you some of the causes here. So somehow these electromagnetic fields are set up, or somehow this plasma is created, and this filamentary plasma is created like a spoke in outer space that stays there. And then as a planet comes around, and some other planet that has the right charge or the right, something, the right makeup of minerals, or if it's a gaseous planet, and then creates this effect on the Earth. Okay, there's other causes here, though. Solar and lunar causes. In describing his investigations of Neptune in 1924, Walter Gorn-Old said, "The mythology of Neptune seems to support the notion that it has much to do with earthquakes. It is a fact that some of the more recent great earthquakes have happened at or immediately after the conjunctions or oppositions of Uranus, Mars, and Neptune. As the sun starts changing its altitude in the solstices on June 21st and December 21st, he reported new strains seem to activate the full length of the great mountain ranges. This strain, plus the maximum forces of the sun and moon at the new and full moon which follows, provides a most likely situation for the release of an earthquake. Ancient astronomers were more intrigued by such relationships than modern seismologists. Their first correlations were quite naturally atmospheric, but eventually all agreed that when an eclipse of the sun or moon takes place in connection with Mercury, it will generate in the atmosphere turbulent, sharp, and variable winds, together with thunder and lightning accompanied by sudden chasms in the earth and earthquakes. Okay, conjunctions of planets. Barthélemy Saint-Hilaire, a French physicist, after years of studying solely lunar coincidence to Earth shocks, concluded the dates of many great earthquakes which compare with eclipses of the sun and moon indicate that they are en rapport. Okay, eclipses of the sun and moon. These are conjunctions. When you have an eclipse, you have a conjunction. Less than 24 hours, meaning those two planets are in the same space in the sky in direct line to Earth. Less than 24 hours after an eclipse of the sun, the Great Riviera earthquake struck on February 22nd, 1887. On June 1st, 1883, following a total lunar eclipse when the moon was in perigee, which means when the moon was closest to Earth. So this is another principle here. So we had Uranus, we have conjunctions and eclipses and oppositions, and then we have also then we have the perigee, when planets are really close, okay? Number 3 is when planets are really, really close to the Earth, and also forming conjunctions would probably obviously be even worse. So obviously when a planet is closest to the Earth, it's going to have the biggest effect it could have on the Earth because it's closest. So if there's if whatever planet is there is having a repelling action against the Earth, or whether it's having a attractive force upon the Earth and to each other, may create different electrical discharges, electromagnetic phenomena. Dr. J. Goad, who listed many major earthquakes. Okay, sorry. If the moon is in perigee during an eclipse or other conjunction, the likelihood of an earthquake in the calculated area is increased. Dr. J. Goad, who listed many major earthquakes which happened while Jupiter was transiting through Taurus, wrote, "I am sure that this phenomenon depends on the conjunction of Venus or Mercury with Jupiter." So all these people are trying to pick a specific planet or specific planets that they think are causing it, but really it's just the conjunctions of different planets. It can be any planets, the conjunctions, the oppositions, when you're creating these lines of energy between the Earth and the planets. Where Saturn is directly beneath the Earth at the point of observation, during the times the Sun is at the equinoxes or solstices, that point is significant in locating future seismic breaking points. This position seems to pinpoint the place of weakest resistance to Earth shocks. It is called the nadir. Okay, the nadir, when a planet is below, directly underneath the Earth, if you will, from observation preferences, or, from where we are observing. The difference between celestial conditions that coincide with earthquakes and those which equate to volcanic eruptions is subtle. The precise locations of earth faults as opposed to active volcanoes must be known in order to deliver an accurate forecast. There are unexplained cases, for example, when a predicted earthquake has failed to materialize at Uranus's meridian transit. Instead, a building, a wall, or a mine has collapsed at the predicted area. Okay, so when the sun is at the equinoxes or solstices, okay, when certain planets are at the equinoxes or solstices, right, which are, basically the cardinal points in astrology, okay, so, December 21st, June 21st, June 21st being the, the summer solstice, December 21st being the winter solstice, right, so, and then you have the others. Okay, so that's number 4, if you will. Okay, Uranus overhead, conjunctions and eclipses and oppositions, equinoxes and, well, perigee, and then equinoxes and solstices. Okay, those are 4 things, 4 determinants of earthquakes. Okay. There are unexplained cases, for example, when a predicted earthquake has failed to materialize. Oh, yeah, I already read that. Okay, spokes in the magnetic wheel. According to exhaustive observations, a conjunction of Jupiter and Mars seems to influence earthquakes by expansion. Okay, that would make sense because Jupiter is associated with expansion in astrology. Saturn operates exactly in the opposite way, by contraction, because Saturn is contraction in astrology. Uranus is more erratic. Its key word is abruptness, and its overhead position coincides with unexpected volcanic and seismic activity, where Jupiter or Saturn-influenced quakes would be preceded by ominous rumbling. The Uranus-type earthquake strikes without warning. The timing factor of earthquakes, therefore, is related to eclipses, conjunctions, and the planetary patterns formed at the moment of seasonal change, the equinoxes and solstices. In certain cases, such celestial events may have occurred months before an earthquake. In an extremely rare eclipse, when many planets are in line with the Earth, as on February 4th, 1962, the terrestrial effects are felt for a long time afterward. It's as though each conjunction or eclipse develops extremely long spokes or concentrated... Okay, these are called... in plasma physics, this is real. They talk about plasma can, if an electromagnetic field enters plasma, basically, it can create these filaments. It can create these like ropes of electricity. Okay, basically giant lightning bolts. Okay, it can create these. And they're called, there's another name for them, like Berkels or Burke's lines or something. I forget the exact name. I think Birkeland currents. These spokes that they're talking about here are, if you think about plasma, which this book doesn't really talk about, start to make some real sense. Okay, plasma discharges, okay, causing these quakes. It's as though each conjunction or eclipse develops extremely long spokes or concentrated lines of energy which radiate from the point of an eclipse or conjunction throughout the solar system, each spoke being 15 degrees apart. When the first planet swinging around in its orbit contacts one of these invisible spokes, the charge it had accrued at the time of the conjunction or eclipse is suddenly set off. Okay? You're talking, if you think about planets, they're made up of different elements, okay? These elements interact with each other on this long-distance scale due to plasma. Plasma is the most abundant form of matter in the universe, okay? It's the 4th state of matter. You never heard of this, right? Nobody ever talked about plasma. All you ever heard was liquid, solid, and gas. Plasma is the 4th state of matter, and actually the most abundant state of matter in the universe. Okay? The electromagnetic mold for all matter. This may be illustrated by... This may be illustrated by snowflakes, which always form their patterns with the basic hexagon design. Okay, so this is another very interesting theory on how earthquakes are formed. Basically, crystallizations and changes in the crystals within the Earth. Okay, this may be as above, so below, claim the early astronomers. The 60-degree angle between planets, especially Uranus and Venus, is the most crystallizing aspect. It always coincides with a sparkling clear atmosphere and cool weather at the point of observation. The hexagon angles in a snowflake are, of course, 60 degrees apart. Other natural phenomena also conform to this pattern. Responding to some unknown instinct, bees all over the world build hexagonal honeycombs. Many crystals found in the Earth also form hexagonal structures. So do many minerals, basalt rock formations, for example. Diamonds and other piezoelectric crystals always form with 12 axes or sides, and diamonds must always be cut along their natural axis. Piezoelectric is basically a property of crystals where basically they can convert force into electricity or convert electricity into force. That's just a natural ability of crystals. Crystals are in your computer, enabling you to watch this video, okay? Crystals store information, right? Minerals, okay? These things are responsible. The silicon chips, okay? Computer chips, okay? Silica crystals. Silica is a mineral, okay? Silica is one of the most abundant elements in Earth's crust, okay? I think if not the most abundant, I think it's the second most abundant after aluminum, or it's the first before aluminum. It's one of the top two. So we're floating on a giant crystal ball, okay? The Earth is a giant crystal, okay? In a lot of ways, but the Earth also produces a magnetic field, so the sun produces a solar magnetic field, right, which is actually shielded, and the solar wind is shielded by the magnetic field produced by the Earth. The Earth produces a magnetic field due to the outer core, which is like liquid iron, and then this dynamo effect that creates a magnetic field that shields and a magnetosphere that shields and protects the Earth from solar wind, right? So everything out there is producing a magnetic field. It's all electrical. It's all magnetism. Okay, lodestone is what you know of as a magnet. Okay, that's a particular stone that is just what you know of. The iron filings that you threw near a piece of lodestone in your fourth or fifth grade class or whatever. That's how you know of magnets, right? So, but there's a lot more to it. It could be that minerals, crystals, snowflakes, and honeycombs have something to do with the sun, moon, and planets, as well as the electromagnetic field of the Earth. It's conceivable that a certain arrangement of planets can build up a charge which is felt in the Earth when another planet forms a critical angle to the overall pattern. When a planet touches a spoke of pent-up energy at a predetermined point in space, it releases its charge, then remains neutral until the next conjunction or eclipse, when the aspecting planets are charged again. If 2 or 3 major celestial events occur before a slower-moving planet makes the first contact and discharges its pent-up energy, the force potential seems to be that much greater. Okay, here's the other thing right here. In July 1963, F.F. Evison, Ph.D., a member of the American Geophysical Union, announced the discovery of a new theory on the cause of earthquakes. Dr. Evison detected a change in the angular structure of crystals deep inside the Earth's crust. Many of the known fault areas, he claimed, have large amounts of agate and garnet. A change in the angular growth of these minerals can change them from one form of crystal to another, cause a Also, they can cause a 3% change in the volume of the crystals and occur in a period of several seconds. If millions or even thousands of tons of garnet deep in the Earth's mantle suddenly gains or loses 3% of its volume, tremendous physical changes are bound to occur at the surface. This expansion, Jupiter, or contraction, Saturn, may occur many miles within the Earth's interior. Okay, the expansion or contraction of the Earth's crust, right? And they've shown this. Okay, I'm going to read some of those. Let me read that real quick before. So this is holoscience.com. This is basically the electric universe, electric earthquakes. Okay, many strange phenomena precede large earthquakes. Some of them have been reported for centuries, even millennia. The list is long and diverse. Bulging of the Earth's surface, changing well water levels. Okay, bulging of the Earth's surface. What did this guy say back in 1963? Evison. Okay, change. Okay, 3% change in the volume of the crystals. Okay, in several seconds. in a few seconds. The list is okay. Some have been. Let me see where the list is long. Changing well water levels, ground hugging fog. Okay, these are some of the phenomena that precede large earthquakes. Fog, well water levels changing, low frequency electromagnetic emission, which there's an interesting abbreviation for that's called ELVS, which since it's almost Christmas, I figured I'd mention the fact that look up ELVS abbreviation in regard to electricity, electrical phenomena. Very interesting. Earthquake lights from ridges and mountaintops. Okay, lights from ridges and mountaintops. Basically lasers. If you think about, these conjunctions forming giant lasers or giant lightning bolts. Okay, if we're talking about the electric universe theories, or if we're talking about this stuff here, okay, they just said earthquake lights from ridges and mountaintops. Okay, lights. Magnetic field anomalies up to 0.5% of Earth's dipole field. Magnetic field anomalies. Okay, this is proven stuff right here. This is not this wooey, foo-foo astrology book that you guys think is probably bullcrap. Temperature anomalies by several degrees over wide areas as seen in satellite images. Okay, temperature anomalies, right? So, what did I say about plasma? That plasma can be created by heat being applied to a gas. In the case of the sun, is the source of heat in the solar system. So if you're talking about conjunctions between the sun and other planets, you're talking about eclipses, right? You're talking about the sun is a plasma, okay, created by the fusion of helium and hydrogen, right? But it is a plasma, okay? It is this fourth state of matter. All stars are plasmas. And so this source of plasma, there's already a giant source of plasma, that's fueling all of this, okay? So that's the source of heat that can be applied to other gaseous planets, or these planets coming into conjunction with each other, creating this electromagnetic effect, right? So I don't know that much about all this scientific stuff. I'm more into this, I'm into all of it, but I don't have a degree in this stuff. So I'm searching in the dark. Somebody else can explain this better. Just I'm giving you the clues and giving you the tidbits so you can go further my work and my research. Okay, because I don't know everything about all this. Okay, earthquake lights from ridges, magnetic field anomalies up to 0.5% of the Earth's dipole field, temperature anomalies by several degrees over wide areas as seen in satellite images, changes in the plasma density of the ionosphere, okay, plasma density of the ionosphere, hello, and strange animal behavior, because it seems nearly impossible to imagine that such diverse phenomena could have a common physical cause. There is great confusion and even greater controversy. Okay, back to this book, okay, because I kind of interrupted this crystal theory here. Dr. Evison may have supplied the final clue. If millions or even thousands of tons of garnet deep in the Earth's mantle suddenly gains or loses 3% of its volume, tremendous physical changes are bound to occur at the surface. Okay, like I said. Dr. Evison may have supplied the final clue on the true cause of earthquakes. A remarkable correspondence exists between the angles formed between the planets and those of complex crystalline structures beneath the Earth's surface. Quartz, graphite, diamond, agate, and garnet. Okay, interesting theory there. Dr. Pierce's Amazing Almanac. In 1885, Dr. A.J. Pierce, one of the most accurate astrologers of the 19th century, cited the conjunction of Mars and Jupiter on June 27, 1886, and ventured this forecast. The conjunction takes place at 5:30 p.m. at 177 degrees of celestial longitude, 27 degrees Virgo, and on the nadir, beneath the Earth, at Washington, D.C. Severe earth shocks near the 78th degree of west longitude may therefore be expected. Okay, that was his quote, that whole quote there. Pierce also predicted that on the day following a total eclipse of the sun on August 29th, 1886, during which the moon would be in perigee, remember closest to the Earth, at 156 degrees of celestial longitude, there would be a great quake on the Italian peninsula. At 11 p.m. on the day following this eclipse, the severest earthquake in 29 years struck Naples, Italy. Then on August 31st, 1886, the second greatest earthquake in American history occurred at 9:51 p.m. at 78 degrees west longitude. This was the great catastrophe at Charleston, South Carolina. Okay? He predicted 78th degree of west longitude. That's what he said. Okay, and then that's exactly what happened. Its occurrence underscored just one of Pierce's many accurate earthquake forecasts that appeared each year in his almanac. Okay, so these guys know how to predict this stuff if you know, they're really well researched and studied in astrology, astronomy, whatever. Okay, so we can predict these things, folks, if we just have the knowledge. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to give you guys, so that we can utilize this knowledge so that we can prevent death of human life, okay, and disasters here in some way. In 1783, massive earthquakes in Calabria killed 40,000 Italians. These quakes occurred when Jupiter, Saturn, and Neptune formed a T-square across the solar system from 90 degrees and 270 degrees of celestial longitude. Neptune, of course, was at 180 degrees at right angles to both sides. Earthquakes are exceptionally likely when planetary stress is applied across the 90 degree to 270 degree sectors or at quadrature to either point, as shown in illustration C. Okay? Those are all planets there. Okay, you see? You've got Jupiter. Okay, you've got Saturn. Sorry, Uranus. Uranus is over here. Uranus, Jupiter, Saturn, and then Neptune and Pluto down here. Okay, the T-square. Okay, squares in astrology, square aspects in astrology are considered very challenging, right? So, considered very challenging and very stressful and intense. Okay, so this is a T-square, which is, you know, even worse. Okay, so we had Uranus overhead, conjunctions and eclipses and oppositions, perigee, equinoxes and solstices, and now T-squares. Okay, 5 predictors there. He also learned, some earthquakes are exceptionally, on December 28th, 1908, more than 78,000 people were killed in an earthquake at Messina, Italy. The Sun, Mercury, and Uranus were in the cardinal sign, Capricorn, at 270 degrees, in quadrature to Saturn, a planet of large mass. Okay, cardinal signs are the cross, right? Libra, Aries, Capricorn, and Cancer. These are the cardinal signs, right? So that's the T-square. He also learned that, some researchers have found that the combined effect of the sun and moon of the syzygies, which is basically a word for conjunction and opposition, is approximately 3 times as great as the effect produced at quadrature. So conjunctions and oppositions are more important than quadratures, but quadratures nevertheless are still important. He also learned that quakes of large magnitude often take place soon after the sun and moon are in line to the earth and when the moon is in perigee, when the moon is closest to the earth. 12,347 earthquakes occurred in syzygy weeks compared to 11,601 at quadrature. So, more often when there's conjunctions and oppositions than when quadrature, but not that much more often. They are also more frequent, he said, when the action of the sun and moon on the earth is in the same direction, and shocks are more numerous when the moon is overhead than when near the horizon. Okay, the horizon would be at the equinoxes. Overhead would be, a cardinal point like Capricorn. It would be the midheaven, the medium coeli. There is a maximum of earthquake activity, one spokesman said, when Jupiter and Saturn are close to conjunction in the same mean longitudes, 265 degrees and 135 degrees. Why this should occur in the signs Leo and Sagittarius more so than in Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions in any other sector of space is still a complete mystery. So according to this guy, or this research group, they find more often that these conjunctions cause, the Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions cause earthquakes more often in Leo and Sagittarius. Maybe it's because they're fire signs. You know, fire is very quick, it's active, it's can be destructive, obviously, and it's aggressive, it's assertive, it's all those things. It's hot. And, you know, there's the hot planets and the cold planets, you know, the differences in temperature, all these things. When a planet is in perigee, close to the Earth, perihelion, close to the Sun, or stationary, it acts with greater potency than at other times. Of course, if the planets are closer to each other, they're going to have a stronger effect on each other. Okay, I'm almost through this stuff. I know this has been a long one, but it's interesting to me. Hopefully it's interesting to somebody out there. The entire planet rang again during the Anchorage, Alaska quake of March 27th, 1964. Okay, there's basically, before earthquakes, there's this ringing that can occur. The shock was so severe that the whole body of the planet down to its core rang like a bell. They were talking about this earthquake in Chile, and there was this ringing in the atmosphere. I've actually seen this YouTube video of some guy who thinks it's some conspiracy or something, that he was recording this ringing sound that the Earth was making wherever he lived. And I wonder if there was actually an earthquake shortly after that ringing in wherever he was filming this. You know, he boiled it down to some conspiracy, but you can boil it down to, you know, these electromagnetic effects causing earthquakes. The entire planet rang, okay, during March 27th, 1964. Okay. This is an eclipse pattern, October 2nd, 1959 in Chile. Okay, you see the conjunctions. Okay, you see some conjunctions and whatnot. What else? May 21st, 1960, Chile. Okay. And then you've got blah, blah, blah. So if you hear some ringing outside, I might take cover. Okay. Ringing. Okay, that's another predictor. Okay, that would be number 6 here. Okay, Uranus overhead, conjunctions and eclipses and oppositions, perigee, equinoxes and solstices, T-squares, ringing, and also even perihelion locations of planets closest to the sun, right? So 80 years ago, with no assistance whatever from puny man, nature unleashed the most colossal series of blasts ever known in the record of post-biblical man. On August 27th, 1883, the volcano Kerang on the island of Krakatoa in the Sunda Strait belched up fire, ash, and lava in preparation for a series of eruptions that would affect the entire planet for years to come. Each of these mighty explosions were to surpass in fury thousands of 100 megaton H-bombs all going off at once. This story has a particularly interesting celestial background, beginning with the rising of the sun at Java on November 10th, 1882, more than 8 months before the main event. At sunrise, there was a solar eclipse which occurred at 218 degrees, middle of the sign Scorpio. 8 of the planets were in those areas of space, long associated with earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. In addition, the sun and moon were 180 degrees in opposition to Neptune, within a few degrees of opposition to Saturn, and a slightly wider orb of opposition to Pluto. as yet undiscovered. Pluto wasn't even discovered at the time this occurred, I guess. The Mars-Pluto opposition lacked only 2 degrees to be exact. Mercury was in trine aspect with Jupiter. Thus, on November 10th at 11:19 p.m., sunrise Java time, the Moon and Mars were rising with the Sun in Scorpio. Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto were setting in Taurus. 3 days later, a series of worldwide earthquakes and volcanic eruptions began as the orbiting planets formed a closer series of triggering aspects with each other and with sensitized points in space. These natural events lasted throughout 1883 and took an enormous toll of human life. Okay, so you see these conjunctions and oppositions, right? Okay, the line, creating this direct line, okay, of force applied to the earth, or energy, or electricity, or magnetism, or something, okay, whatever you want to call it. I'm not the physics major, I don't know. With a release of energy exceeding that of scores of H-bombs, Krakatoa erupted like nothing known in man's memory. In a series of unimaginably violent explosions, the island volcano blasted 4.5 cubic miles of itself into the thinnest reaches of the upper atmosphere on 4 consecutive 80,000-foot towers of flaming violence. Each convulsive, earth-shattering roar was felt and heard 2,750 miles away. Huge walls of water rose to a height of 100 feet and roared off at unbelievable speeds onto the South China Sea and the Pacific and Indian Oceans. They destroyed everything in their paths. Tidal registers in every part of the world recorded it. On the coast of Java, 3 towns and every living creature within them were literally erased from the face of the planet. A great hole 1,000 feet deep was ripped out of the floor of the ocean. 35,000 people met instant death, and thousands more died in the aftermath. An island 3,000 feet high was totally submerged. High noon for thousands of miles surrounding Sunda Strait was as black as a moonless, starless midnight for almost 2 weeks. Several years later, due to atmospheric debris from the eruptions, the world's sunsets were still weirdly beautiful red and scarlet panoramas like a view from an alien world. 10 years afterward, the dust and ashes of Krakatoa, carried by the trade winds and jet streams, was still settling all over the globe. Krakatoa, now considered dormant, still synchronizes its activity with celestial events. It erupted 10 times during the 1950s. Okay, that's pretty much it. There's whether it's a pole shift or whether it's earthquakes or whether it's volcanic eruptions or tsunamis. Okay, tsunamis can be caused by earthquakes in the ocean. Okay, magnetic field, right? You have positive, you have negative, okay? And it just creates a field, right? And this can also create electricity. Really, electricity creates magnetism more so. But again, I don't know everything about this stuff. I'm more of the astrologer and numerologer than anything. But I try to find the science to back up astrology, because I think astrology is so accurate. I have this, obsession, I guess, because we're in the age of Aquarius with, which is science and electricity. Okay. I guess and the principle of I know, since people theorize that we've either entered Aquarius in 2012 or we entered it sometime around the 1960s, or we have yet to enter it. There's different predictions of when we've entered the age of Aquarius, but Aquarius is associated with a lot of these things, and so I find it interesting to research this kind of stuff, hopefully somebody out there does also. Okay, so that's about it. Just wanted to give somebody out there who's smarter than I am the tools to predict these disasters so that we can save lives, and also give people a little bit more science underneath the fact that planets do affect us. It's simple, it's easy to understand through studying plasma, through studying electricity, through studying magnetism, eclipses, all these things. And, you know, people think that the planets are so far away, how could they possibly affect us? But that's just, you just haven't researched enough, okay? You need to research more. And as do I don't know everything, okay? So hope you guys enjoyed it. Collin Chi, certified nutritional consultant, numerologist. If you'd like a nutritional or numerological consultation, those are my specialties, even more so than all this high-flung science and highfalutin philosophy and whatnot. But hit me up at collinchi@gmail.com if you'd like a consultation. I will put the link in the description below. Like and subscribe if you want to get a feed of videos. Every time we post a video, you will get a notification if you subscribe to our channel. So hit the subscribe button. And as always, rise. Yeah.